So Pepsi was the starting point. I spent 2 years in Pepsi. So I joined this company called Sasken in Bangalore. So Sasken was like a telecom technology product
It's a
and
German
services
company, right?
company. No, Indian company, very much Indian
Okay.
companies. After which I ended up doing two startup stints again. One again was with a telecom device company that was just entering the Indian market. That was a short-lived stint. The company kind of gave it a good shot, but never saw real light of day in the market.
Do
But
you
that
want to
was
share the
again,
name of that company?
sure, it was a company called Peak Mobile. Second startup I worked in after Peak, it was called Above, a bunch of versatile entrepreneurs, ABOVE. And he reached out to me and said he was partnering with Indian cricketer Anil Kumble to start a company. And he said, "Do you know anyone who would be interested in coming on board and working? This is like literally the employee number one position." What do you mean anyone? Like, please take. Here is my resume. Please take it and join them with some clear tenure and structure in place. So 2012 February, on a very interesting date, we incorporated a company. We gave it the name that we had given our quizzing team, a name which many people sometimes say has negative connotations, which is Nexus. Our quizzing team was called Nexus. We knew we were reasonably good at this. The thing we had to do to kind of possibly complete that hedgehog concept was to see if we can make money out of it.
Can you give us like a 3 or 4 minute summary of where all you've been, which companies, which
Yeah.
geographies, which functions between 2000 and 2024?
Sure. So Pepsi was the starting point. I spent 2 years in Pepsi, almost exactly. A combination of circumstances, and I had to leave. The next gig was so Pepsi. I was largely in while initial reporting, induction, etc. was in the headquarters in Gurgaon, which was rather not the crazy place it is today. I was largely posted in Tamil Nadu. I was working out of Madurai and a little bit out of Coimbatore. Then I moved to a small, what was called a reputation management company, which is essentially a brand consulting stroke people consulting firm. Worked with them for about 3.5 years.
What was the name of this company? It was based in Bangalore, right? I
It was based in
remember.
Chennai and Bangalore. It was started in Chennai. It is a company called Image Equity. Started in Chennai, and I moved to Bangalore, set up their Bangalore office. A bunch of things had happened, and I had to move out.
So tell me this job transition that you did from Pepsi to Image Equity, did you like was there a point where you didn't have a job? You were looking for a
Hmm.
job, or did you find
Yeah.
the Image Equity job while at Pepsi?
No, I had a little bit of a point. I think a couple of months when I was not in a job,
Hmm,
a month or two perhaps when I was
hmm,
in between jobs per se. Before I found this, but that hasn't happened since. That was
hmm.
possibly the only stint. Because from Image Equity, I moved to this again to a fairly large company and in a space I had absolutely no exposure to, which was telecom engineering. So I
Hmm,
joined this company called Sasken in Bangalore. So
hmm.
Sasken was like a telecom technology product and services company. Started in Domlur, in fact, which is where global headquarters are still. I joined them again. I had no background. I was not an engineer. I didn't know tech. I didn't know telecom. That was, I think, Sasken was in my career the longest, close to 4 years, really coherent corporate stint. But from there, I moved into, someone at the senior management team decided that we are now listed, let's give investor relations like a real push. And so I was a sales guy doing investor relations. I was talking to brokerage houses and funds and trying to tell the story of the company. I was kind of I was on road shows with the senior management of the company, often in Bombay, often in Delhi, meeting all these people. People would come to our office in Bangalore, and we would tell the story and build the story of why this is going to. This was a very innovative play in the tech telecom space and so on. So along the way, understood that really well. And towards the end of that stint, ended up in again in a sales role, leading sales for one of the divisions of Saskia. I don't think anybody in any organization would necessarily have done marketing and communications, investor relations, and sales during like a 4 year stint that they spend at an organization.
And
So
also
I,
most
I
of these
That
things
sounds very much.
they seem very hands-on. Like producing an annual report by a marketing guy. So it looks like people
yeah.
have always noticed that you bring something extra to the table.
So that brings us to roughly 2009, after which I ended up doing two startup stints again.
Right.
One again was with a telecom device company that was just entering the Indian market. It was a company called Peak Mobile,
P. Okay.
PWK. So came into India at that time with the premise of doing push email as the predominant functionality over data networks. Worked with them for a very intense about 10 months, after which it became clear that it was kind of we're going to run out of funding and it wasn't really going to go anywhere. So I exited after I'd moved to Bangalore in the mid 2000s. Prasan introduced me to him saying, "Hey, this guy works in my company and he also seems to be interested in all this quizzing and is looking for some teammate. Since I know that you quiz, do you guys want to like get together?" And that's how I met Vivek Karthikeyan. Vivek was my current business partner at my firm. Second startup I worked in after peak, it was called Above, a bunch of versatile entrepreneurs. ABOVE. From childhood days, apart from all this quizzing, reading, etc., was sports. Right? Sports was a big thing. I never played sport at any level to be proficient about it, but watching and following sport was like a deep thing. So the context to all this was one of my ex-colleagues in Saskin, with whom I'd had a lot of corridor conversations around sport, a very senior gentleman. I knew he'd played sport at some level, at some senior level those days. I didn't know the details, but he and I were in sporadic touch, and he reached out to me and said he was partnering with Indian cricketer Anil Kumble to start a company. And he said, "Do you know anyone who would be interested in coming on board and working? This is like literally the employee number one position." I
And he
said,
said,
"What
"What
do you
about
mean
me?"
anyone?" Yeah, I said, "What do you mean anyone? Like, please take, here is my resume, please take it." He was like, "Oh, really? You want to join? Are you sure?" I said, how can I convince you more? So I went and I met him. I met, the other co-founder of the company. And then, of course, I had the memorable opportunity of going to the Chinnaswamy Stadium where Anil Kumble was, president of the KSCA at that time. Went into his office, had this interview with him, and joined them with some clear tenure and structure in place. A couple of friends and I set up a company to pursue our quizzing passion in parallel. So we said, let's set up this company because a lot of people are asking us to like do quizzes for fun. Like people would come and say, I have a small office meetup with my team. Can you just come to the office and do a quiz there? Then
This is
somebody we knew
2012.
2012. Yeah. So 2012, February, on a very interesting date, we incorporated a company. We gave it the name that we had given our quizzing team, a name which many people sometimes say has negative connotations, which is Nexus. Our quizzing team was called Nexus. It was in fact called Holy Nexus, to kind of make it clear that it is not unholy.